the next one on the list is Kenny McIntosh, running back, Georgia, 6 foot 204. He had 9 in chance. I know that we're not really doing that, but 4.62 in the 40. 1.54 though in the 10-yard split, which is not that far behind some of the other guys that ran good.
0.2 behind Bijan.
Right. That 40 time kind of took me aback a little bit.
Because he looks faster than that on tape. Yeah. And that's why I did want to mention a lot of these 10-yard splits, because guys like this that didn't run a great 40 but still look fast on tape, so it kind of shows in that 10-yard split. So that's why I kind of wanted to add that in. 149 rushing attempts, 829 yards rushing, 10 touchdowns, 43 receptions, 505 yards, and an additional 2 touchdowns.
It sucks that these guys don't run 3 cones anymore. Barely any of these running backs ran the 3 cone.
I know.
Only a couple.
It's one of my biggest barometers. I love seeing the 3 cones. I love seeing the 20-yard shuttles.
And they're just shifty hips.
And they're just not doing it. The one guy that did do it, I loved his time, and I also like him as prospect. We won't talk about him until later on, I think in the Nerd Herd show, but he did have one.
He did have one. I got excited when I got to put it in there. And it was a good time.
It was a very good time.
So Kenny McIntosh out of Georgia, like Matt said, this was a prospect that I actually went into slightly with a negative concept, because I saw Jared Wackerly put a tweet out before I jumped into his film.
This guy.
Saying this is a guy that people are excited about, but I just don't see it. And I was like, great. Here's a guy. Because sometimes you go into tape and you have preconceived notions like, this guy's going to suck. Or this guy's going to be really good. Like you go and watch Bijan, you're like, this is going to be juicy. And I actually came away pleasantly surprised with Kenny McIntosh. This is a guy who catches the ball well. I mean, it's probably his best attribute, right? Him catching the football.
Definitely.
I gave him a 9.
A lot of experience in the passing game. He ran 230 passing routes in college, 42 targets, 0 drops. He lined up in the slot and the outside as well. Looked good in pass protection. His contact balance is okay, not bad. I thought his vision was okay, I guess. I mean, there's times I saw him run into his blockers a couple times. You know, that Trent Richardson, that look when you run to the back of your blockers, and you're like, dude, what are you doing? Like, what are you looking at? And I thought there was some stuff that was there for him that he just missed. He dances a little bit too behind the line of scrimmage sometimes as well. Once he gets the ball in his hands, he's not an overly elusive runner. And that's why when I saw his 40 time at 4.62, I'm like, he gets the ball, he makes a one cut, and he goes, and he's pretty good at that. You know, definitely when you throw him to football, like I really like him in a passing game, which in today's NFL, and when we're looking at Dynasty fans for running backs, definitely when most teams have 2 running back systems, almost all of them, when you have a 2-back system, I want the running back on that team that's going to catch the footballs. This is where Kenny McIntosh comes in and what he offers the upside. If he is that running back on an NFL team, he offers running back 2 upside for your Dynasty fantasy football team. Wherever he goes, there's a very high likely chance that's going to be a very strong part of his game. So for that fact alone, out of this group that we're talking about, like between the Nerd Herd running backs and this running back, he's right around like the 4th best running back that I watched this past week.
I agree that he's got some talent. I love the fact that you kind of mentioned the one cut and go, because I do think that's kind of his best attribute. If he could get into his zone blocking scheme where he's also catching passes and he's getting in one of these wide zones where you're kind of stringing it out, you find a crease, you put your foot in the ground and go. I think that's something he can excel at, because I think he's got really good burst and like short area quickness, and change of direction is a good thing for him. I do think if he dances a little bit too much, he doesn't kind of have the juice for that kind of stuff. And obviously the long speed, he's got enough speed to be an NFL back. 4.62 is nothing great, but we've seen plenty of backs that have had similar scores to that be just fine in the NFL. I mean, Kareem Hunt and stuff like that. Those are guys that are right around those kind of times coming out of the NFL. But I do think that kind of scheme would benefit him greatly, and that's if you ended up into Miami, I know like we say that about everybody, right? Like, but if he ended up in that kind of system where he was in a zone scheme, I think that'd be great for him.
Kind of got the wind sucked out today when they re-signed Raheem Mostert and Jeff Wilson.
Yeah, no, I
saw Mostert. I didn't see Wilson.
Yeah, they're always looking for backs in those kind of systems.
Over there or something?
Yeah, David Montgomery, the Lions.
What kind of deal?
Well, we'll talk about that this weekend.
Yeah. I just like has like, oh.
We saw the face.
Yeah.
We saw the face you made.
Well, it's better than Bijan to the Lions.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't see a deal yet posted, but
All right. I still like DeAndre Swift better.
So for me, with Kenny McIntosh, I'll push back slightly on the vision. I actually liked his vision. Here's why. He's a tough eval for it because Georgia's blocking is awesome. Like really, really good offensive line. One of the best offensive lines in college football. So I think some of that time he was literally just, I'm trusting my offensive line to do what it's supposed to do. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a break on that. And on top of it, I think his second level vision is very good. When he gets in the open field, he does a great job of diagnosing what's going on, the leverage of the different players, the linebackers, the secondary. I think he gets down the field and he doesn't have great speed.
No.
But he makes the most of the speed he has.
Still breaks big runs, though.
He breaks a lot of big runs, and that's because of his vision downfield. So I actually overall was very impressed with that. I thought he broke a decent amount of tackles. Doesn't have great game speed. But to your point, Matt, I gave him a much better burst/acceleration than I did speed score because I don't think his speed is good, but I think he's got really solid burst. I have gone to the point, and we talk about it almost every year, and I'll emphasize it again. I am much more so of a pass-fail guy in the receiving game. Obviously, this is major pass for him. He's awesome. Yeah. The one slight differentiation I'll make with him versus other guys in this, and he might be the only one in the class. There's one other guy that might fall into this category too. But he and Jared and I were actually talking about this on the way up. His build is actually slightly more of a receiver build than it is a running
6
back
foot
build.
204. Yeah,
he's like long.
he's
too.
long.
He's long.
Slight.
So with all of that, it would not surprise me if he is split out more, like you were mentioning, Rich. Like if he is utilized more often, kind of the reverse Deebo Samuel, the guy that is a running back by nature, but plays a decent amount of receiver because that is absolutely in his game. So if there is a team that's going to utilize him that way, we're talking about a major plus, but he still has a big enough body that he could be a first and second down guy. So even though I'm not projecting him as a 3-down back, if there was a dark horse to do it, it would be Kenny McIntosh.
Yeah, I'll give you an example of somewhere that would excite me about him still, which would kind of like shock some people that would, like from a fantasy football point, if he got drafted by my team, the Cleveland Browns. That would excite me for him because the Browns are a team that run their offense. On third down, Nick Chubb is not on there. They want to pass catch a running back, and he has opportunity to produce at running back one numbers, and they don't have a really good receiving core, so they could slide him into the slot as well. Kenny McIntosh, to me, is somebody that is a really good sneaky grab. You're probably going to get in the second round that can offer year in, year out fantasy football production. Again, you're not probably looking at always running back one production. Could he get there potentially? Of course. But a guy who finishes at like consistently like running back 16, 15, 18, right around there. Somebody you can start in a really high-end flex player, to say the least. So I think Kenny McIntosh offers a ton of upside here.
And with that being said, I graded him at a 72.15. So where I've kind of noticed my numbers are, if you're above a 72, you have a really good shot at making a difference. The guys that I've seen that I tend to grade below a 72 usually don't hit. There's exceptions, but those ones usually aren't hitting or making much of an impact on their team. So for him to get above that 72 threshold for me was a good sign.
Where'd a guy like did you grade a guy like James Robinson when he came out?
James wasn't one of the ones I graded, unfortunately. I did cut up a game or two of him, so I was familiar.
Okay.
But with him like being undrafted and not getting a ton of buzz, I didn't end up grading him.
I know you said like if he was like he popped in my head as a guy that maybe would have popped a little bit and was probably below that threshold. That's why I asked.
Yeah. So the best example of somebody that popped that did not get above the threshold was Ramondre Stevenson.
Okay.
He was one of the few. In that actually got above that mark on mine. This wasn't the overall nerd score. This was just my personal one.
Sure.
So he's one of the better examples of one that actually like popped.
Gotcha.